So Appendix 7, FDA Regulatory Oversight for Preventive Controls for Human Food. By the end of this section, you'll have two key takeaways. First, you'll be able to identify what specific procedures and records your facility needs to have. And then also you'll get a clear understanding of how FDA enforces its rules, basically a walkthrough of how they go through their inspection. So this is your guide on how to be inspection ready. Some general information: most inspections are unannounced, so it's a knock on the door type of inspection. You won't get a heads up. Sometimes you will. Maybe it's Tuesday, they're going to let you know Thursday we're going to be there. But overall, be ready for any time for them to show up. If it's a foreign inspection, it will be announced, and only federal inspectors conduct those. For domestic inspections, you could be dealing with either an FDA inspector or state inspector. A state inspector would be working under contract with the FDA. And when the inspector arrives, they'll usually present a notice of inspection, and the person in charge at your facility will get a chance to check the inspector's credentials before they begin anything. For smooth inspection, cooperation is key. Be ready to answer questions about your products and processes. Make sure your staff is trained on, they know what their role is and know what they're doing. Inspectors will ask them questions. Have all the documentation in order. That includes any records that support your decisions, plans, and programs. If your facility has had previous inspections and corrective actions were taken, be ready to show evidence of those actions. This is what typically happens during a routine inspection. It starts with an initial interview. So the inspector gathers basic info about your facility. What do you produce? Your operating schedule. Next comes the walkthrough. The inspector will observe the process, walk through the line, ask employees about their tasks, and assess the general practices. After the walkthrough, the inspector will conduct their own hazard analysis and compare it to yours. They'll want to see if your hazard analysis identifies all the hazards requiring preventive controls and any differences between your analysis and theirs. If there is any difference, then you're going to resolve those differences, discuss with the inspector, so you guys come to an agreement on what should be in the analysis. So your hazard analysis is one thing. They're going to review your programs, your procedures for preventive controls that you've identified to check if they're adequate. Do you have the monitoring procedures, corrective actions outlined? For example, verification. Once that review is done, they will return to the processing area and observe if employees are actually following those procedures correctly. So it's one thing to see it in writing, and they're going to check for sure if it's actually happening. They'll also check records to see if preventive controls have been consistently applied over time. So checking the implementation. A general assessment of GMPs will be done, covering areas like pest controls, sanitation, plant and grounds. And finally, the inspection will end with an exit overview or exit interview. The inspector discusses their findings, observations, including any issues found. This is what the inspector might request when it comes to your documentation. Product list, finished product labels, flow diagram, not technically required, but one of the first things they're going to ask for is the flow diagram. Hazard analysis, of course, preventive control supporting documents, your implementation records, and your recall plan. When they identify non-compliances, that falls into two categories. You have either major non-compliances, which are serious because they directly affect public health. When inspectors find these, they will document them in their formal list of observations. On the other hand, minor non-compliances, those are the ones that don't directly affect public health, so they will be discussed more informally during the closeout meeting. If the facility can address any non-compliance issues during the inspection, it should do so immediately. But of course, some corrective actions might not be able to be completed on the spot. So FDA will expect you to provide a written response and a clear timeline as part of that for when those actions will be completed. And what if we don't comply with the rule? Well, of course, FDA has several enforcement tools at its disposal, from informal actions like a regulatory meeting to something more serious like legal steps. Regulatory meeting, that's where you have FDA officials sitting down with the facility management to emphasize the seriousness of the issues and the importance of taking corrective actions. If problems continue, FDA might issue a warning letter, a public warning letter that's on their website. You can find those warning letters on their website. They also have administrative actions like suspension of food facility registration. We can't distribute food anymore. Mandatory recalls if we don't choose to do so voluntarily. Detention, administrative detention. That's holding products believed to be adulterated or misbranded for up to 30 days. Import alerts, kind of in the name, the FDA will stop certain imported products from entering the US without physical examination if they appear to violate regulations. Finally, for more serious situations, I wish no one ever gets to this point for any of these things, but seizure. A seizure, that's a court order to remove a product from commerce, while an injunction is a court order to stop an action. So both are used to by FDA here and there. Criminal prosecutions may occur if prohibited acts are committed, such as not following the rule. But that's for very more serious situations, repeated violations, that's last resort. FDA's compliance data dashboard is a good place to start for looking into inspections. You won't find all inspections here. State inspections, pre-approval inspections, you won't find. To wrap things up, we've covered several key topics here, how these inspections are conducted. It was a brief part, pretty much a quick summary, step by step.